Hey, everybody. Thanks for sticking around here. This is our sponsor spotlight segment, and we've got Michael Brandt from Ketone IQ on to talk a little bit about this new partnership that we've put in place with HVMN and their product, Ketone IQ. And I see more and more about ketones and them being utilized in cycling and endurance events. And so I was kind of looking at this anyway, going, "Oh, what is that stuff?" And then when I got contacted by your team and we started trying it, and I've been using it on anyone that would try it and trying to get their feedback. And so far, it's all come back really good. So I want to introduce Michael Brandt. Michael, tell us a little bit about, first of all, yourself and how you got to this point.
Yeah, this is first of all great to be on the show and looking forward to a fun conversation here today. I am a big marathon runner. I run up to 80 miles a week. I run about 6 minutes per mile for the whole marathon. And I've been really passionate about human performance for some time now. And where that led me is that combination with entrepreneurship as well, led me down a really interesting path in human performance, metabolism, and specifically started looking at how the top performers, starting with special operators in the Department of Defense, could improve their cognitive and physical performance. And in 2019, I was lucky enough with my team to get a $6 million contract with the Department of Defense to look at ketones, and we were the first ever to make a ketone drink at scale. We can go into all the detail on like what this is, what's going on here, but basically start from a personal passion around human performance and then wanting to serve America's finest and push the state of the art forward on how we understand human performance optimization. Is there something better than caffeine and energy drinks? Is there something like, what's the next frontier of all that look like? And it's been really interesting. It's been a really fun trip just on a personal level, and as an entrepreneur, have built a cool business, created a lot of jobs for my team and for just broader community, have lit a lot up here. And so excited to peel back the onion on a few of those things. We can talk about metabolism, talk about entrepreneurship, company building. I think it's the best time in America right now to be an entrepreneur. Never been a better time with easier access to be able to put things together. And yeah, excited to just open up, share my story, and be as helpful to you and your audience as possible.
I love it. Well, let's start with, what is it? Folks that are watching this may not have any idea what Ketone IQ is, as he takes a little hit there. So talk us through what this is for someone who doesn't have any understanding.
Yeah, so a lot of people maybe tried bulletproof coffee back in the day. I think a lot of us know what that is, where it's like coffee and you put fat in your coffee, and a lot of times you put MCT oil specifically, which is a type of fat. And the whole point of that fat in your coffee is that your body turns fat into ketones. And your body can actually do the same when you're doing a ketogenic diet, if you're eating low carb. Basically, whenever your body is running low on sugar, blood sugar, your body will start to make ketones as this super fuel. And that was the initial light of entrepreneurship that went off in my head. It was like, okay, we've known for 100 years that ketones are a super fuel. Your brain especially loves ketones. When you have elevated blood ketone levels through fasting or through eating a low carb diet or through exercising a lot, any of these conditions where you're really pushing your body to its limits, your body makes ketones. We've known for 100 years that your brain especially runs really efficiently on ketones. It works better for fueling your brain in a lot of ways than sugar and the other sources of energy that we can use for our brain. And so the light bulb moment for me was like, okay, well, what if you could just go to the store and buy that super fuel? Like, what, you can get 10 grams of protein powder, or you can get this electrolytes, you can get like these other supplements that can help you in all these amazing ways. What if you could go to the store and buy ketones? And that was the light bulb moment for me and my co-founder and my team. And in short, ketones are a fuel. It's high performance energy. What's interesting about it compared to a couple other things is like, so caffeine is, a lot of energy drinks have caffeine or sugar in it. Caffeine is acaloric. There's no calories inside of caffeine. It's really just a stimulant. It's like yanking the chain on your lawnmower. And I like caffeine. I'm not anti-caffeine. I don't really bill this as a caffeine replacement. But the point is that your brain and your body still need an actual source of fuel. You still need actual calories to do stuff. Calories equals energy. So you can have all the stimulants in the world, but you still need actual calories. You need actual energy to turn into ATP in your cells to do all of the like metabolism. The actual like work takes energy. Sugar has energy. Sugar has calories in it. We all know that feeling of having a sugar rush or carb loading before a race. Sugar has energy. Ketones are like sugar in that they have energy inside of them. They're just a more efficient and like a longer burn than sugar.
Okay. Okay. And so, kind of it all connected for me on that ketogenic diet. That really tied it together. That's what they're tapping into, and that, right? Um, so tell me about then the genesis of this. And you mentioned it a little bit. You're obviously doing marathons. Uh, what was the start of this product? How do
Yeah.
you, okay, so you have the idea like, hey, it'd be cool if I could just buy some ketones, but like, how do you actually take that first step?
Yeah, it's definitely the chicken or egg problem as an entrepreneur, especially when you're doing something really new that hasn't been done before, because like you gotta get a supply chain going. But in order to get a supply chain going, you need to pony up some bucks. You got to
Yeah,
get some capital together. In order to get some capital together, maybe you need an investor or you need a first customer. Or in order to get an investor, and you need a first customer. In order to get a customer, you need product to
product.
sell. You need a supply chain. So it's all like it. In a lot of ways, it's like going back to college, like throwing a party. It's like, I don't know, you need a spot, you need a DJ, you need like a few hundred people to show up. It's like everything kind of rests on one another. It's like when you close a cardboard box by like folding one flap into the other. It's like um, a lot of things in life are that way. And you just, as an entrepreneur, is you just get things kind of spinning. You get one plate spinning a little bit, and you get the next one spinning a little bit, the next one. In our case, it was that I was able to start getting just basically lab bench ketones that was really expensive. We were able to like you could synthesize it, like you could do the chemical reactions to make a ketone outside of your body. Um, right now we make it via a fermentation process, so it's not that different from like kombucha or other fermented products. But in the early days, we were basically able to get it done like very small batch, very expensive, but able to like prove it out and be able to take a serving of it and say, oh wow, like that feels really nice. It feels really like my mind feels really clear. The lights feel flipped on, able to do more data driven, objective science around it with athletes in the field, with special operators. So it started out really expensive. And we were able to get a small amount going. Then from there, able to get some people using it. From there, able to get DoD contract, and then just kind of like, okay, from there we're able to then fundraise, and then from there we're able to scale up our manufacturing. And I say this all like this took years. This was like years of basically skunk works in nutrition for the Department of Defense from like 2019, and it wasn't until 3 years later in 2022 that we were really able to commercialize it. So there's a lot of just like basic science, good old fashioned R&D to like figure out the application, scaling the supply chain, even just how to, I mean, it sounds silly now, but like even how to like package it or price it or message it, like all the stuff that is maybe less obvious when you invent something really new and interesting. It's like this is really cool, but like who would benefit the most for it, and figuring all that stuff out and how to really position it. So yeah, that was a few years long of a journey, and we're still early. I still say it's still day one. We're still very early. Like 99% of people don't know what a ketone is or why you would drink it, and I love that actually. There's a lot of white space on the map.
Yeah, yeah, that's exciting for you to have that much space to grow. I can tell just for our listeners, obviously in motocross, motorcycle riding in general, it's very physically demanding. You're wrestling around a
Oh yeah.
230-pound motorcycle for a long period of time, but it's also very mentally taxing. And you're shifting, you're braking, you're working the clutch, you're navigating obstacles and things are coming at you at speed. It keeps your brain very busy and your brain burns a lot of fuel. And this was something that when I've been taking this about a month now, and obviously I've taken it when I go to the gym. I take it when I'm just at my computer and I've got something to write. And the main thing that I noticed was the mental side. And you kind of tapped into that, but it really made sense to me. It wasn't like I felt like, oh man, I got all this energy, or I felt like I was tapped out on caffeine. It wasn't that kind of feeling. It's just like, for me, the ability to kind of lock in and focus on what I'm doing. And
Yeah.
and over like, a day of testing a motorcycle over a long period of time. So
Yeah.
that made a lot of sense to me. Just as much as our brain burns when you're really taxing it, here is a fuel source that's very clean. I want to ask you about side effects because I really don't think there are many, if any. And I found it to be effective. I also have given it to my girls who play pretty high level soccer, and I noticed just a little bit more intensity in their play. And I kind of have gone back and forth, and I'm like, I don't think it's placebo. It seems to work. Davey Millsaps, who's a pro racer, really believes in it. Chad Reed really believes in it. They're giving it to their kids. So as I kind of ask around and do my due diligence, I'm like, okay, this is legit. I mean, it's not just, I try to do a lot of work to make sure we don't partner with products that are snake oil or that are just a marketing ploy, right? I really want them to be significant. And man, I feel like you guys really fall into that. I've been super impressed myself, and just to sort of quell any of my doubts, like I said, every time I've reached out or given it to somebody, they're like, man, I felt really good on that stuff. So I guess kudos to you there, and take us through a little bit about this product as far as like, okay, high level athletes can benefit from it, but how does the average, quasi sedentary guy who's got a regular job, but he likes to go ride on the weekends or mountain bike or run, or do whatever, right? How can it benefit them?
That's a great question. I'm glad to hear that it's working out for you and so many people in the community around you too. I know one of the first racing groups to start using was Green Beret Racing because the tie in with our work that we've been doing with special forces, they started using it, and it's really cool to see it's picking up in motocross and motorsports in general. It's cool because it's just different application from where we initially started, but like everyone's doing metabolism all the time, and the vision here is that like why can't it be 1 billion people, 8 billion people having ketones every single day to make it universally accessible? Like one of my favorite books is there's a book called First in Thirst. I have it lying around. It's the Gatorade story about how like in 1965 with the Florida Gators, these scientists started mixing weird salty water together and saying like, hey, trust me, bro, like drink this stuff and you'll hydrate better, you'll retain water better, and like, hot, humid Florida summer football. And it started working, and they were doing like test sweatsuits and literally like collecting people's sweat and just proving out that, hey, like you're more efficient of a sweater when you're having electrolytes. And I see a lot of parallels with what we're doing there, where electrolytes got kind of created 40 plus years ago, coming up on 50 years ago, and we're still very early on ketones, and it's not every day that like something new like this comes along. As far as how it can help everyday people, I really think about it as high performance energy. It's not like caffeine where it doesn't give you that same kind of like jittery or like sharpness. And I don't hate caffeine. I think caffeine has its place. It definitely works. I have my cup of coffee every morning, and I have a energy drink here and there, but I try to not overdo it. I try especially to not have too much afternoon. I think a lot of us by now, because of all the like Aura rings and Whoops and Apple Watches, we all know like there's a little bit of a deal with the devil when you have too much caffeine. It's going to interfere with your sleep tonight. It's going to spike your stress hormones, your cortisol. It's not going to be necessarily as good for like high performance on a longer time horizon if you're having like too much caffeine that's interfering with your sleep. And blowing your cortisol up and lowering your T and all the bad stuff that comes along with being just overly stressed out, overly stimmed out. And so I see a lot of people, they want just a different option that it's not a one-to-one replacement. Like ketone IQ does not feel exactly like caffeine. It feels more mellow. It feels more like dialed in. And a lot of people who have like ADD or like trouble focusing, they just feel like they have a little bit better tunnel vision. They're able to focus a little bit more on what's in front of them. It's not this like bouncing all the room around the room super hyper. It's this more like mental locked in. A
Yep.
lot of people who are runners will call it feels like runner's high in a bottle. Not this is not our like number one marketing thing, but we hear people say it's like low dose Adderall, like that comes up in reviews a good amount where people just feel kind of dialed in, and you're not doing this deal with the devil. It's not interfering with your sleep quality. It's not spiking your stress hormones. You can, yes, stack it with caffeine. You can stack it with carbs if you're in a performance environment. A lot of people do that. It's just another angle in as a high performance energy that has some interesting characteristics, especially mentally, that yeah, you can use for a lot of, you can use it if you're racing hard, you can use it if you're on a podcast, you can use it if it's just like a long day taking the kids to travel ball, like whenever you need to push hard or tap a little deeper. And a lot of people just have it first thing in the morning as like a nice energy rise to start the day alongside their coffee or their greens drink or whatever.
Yeah, that was something that I really liked about it, was that I didn't have to uh give up, like if it is my cup of coffee in the morning, right? Or an electrolyte recovery drink. It goes hand in hand with that stuff. It isn't meant to replace those things. It's an addition to. And um folks that are just long day at the office even, and you're just kind of bonking or you're bogging, there's that, it just picks your mental focus back up. That was my biggest takeaway. So it's interesting to hear you say that. Tell me a little bit about, are there any side effects? What are the ingredients? Is there anything we should be worried about? I know in this day and age, man, I'm skeptical of everything that, you know, everything, I guess is where I'm at. So um, talk about the ingredients and if there are any negative side effects to it.
Yeah, sure. So then it is a great question. I think as much as I am a like biohacker experimenter, like I'm not the guy that like has a whole kitchen sink of supplements. I'm very discerning, just like you are, as far as what I actually want to consume, and like needs to hit a certain quality bar and low side effect profile and all that good stuff. So we keep the ingredient list really simple with Ketone IQ. The number one ingredient is ketones. So there's 10 grams of ketones, and that you can think of as just fuel. It's like the way that you could have 10 grams of protein or 10 grams of carbohydrates. Or you can have like 8 ounces of water. It's a fuel that your body is going to directly go and use. When you have ketones present, your body burns it. When you drink Ketone IQ, you can see your ketone level goes up. And then as you do stuff, whether you're running around or sitting and thinking, or even just like fully recovering and resting, your body's always doing metabolism, always using energy. Even when you're, resting and recuperating, there's still a lot of metabolism going on to rest and recuperate. So your body is always doing metabolism. And ketones, when you have them present, they're top of the stack. Like your body will prioritize those. That's part of what's interesting about them. And so they get burned up basically right away. Within a few hours, the Ketone IQ drink gets burned up, and very low side effect profile. And your body knows what to do with ketones already. It's like, again, we can make ketones naturally. We've been making and using ketones in our body for 300,000 years. This is just like a way to add some of the good fuel into your body, and then your body has all of the mechanisms for being able to use it. And then on the rest of the ingredient list, we leave it really simple. So people have tried it. It tastes pretty crazy. Like we don't sauce it up. We don't put too much stuff in there. We make it via a fermentation process, add a little bit of monk fruit extract, and just yeah, a couple other things to I'm just looking at it right now. It's ketones, the main ingredient, and then there's water, monk fruit, and then Reb M, that's stevia and citric acid and so a little bit of natural flavors. So keep it really simple. And yeah, it's part of why it tastes crazy is because like we don't do a ton of like softening up. We're exploring different products in the future to make like yummier, different tasting ones, but we're always going to keep the OG one that's just a very simple, kind of crazy tasting, but very simple ingredient list that is very clean.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely not like a sugary little sweet drink you're gonna get up and sip on in the morning. I tell people like, hey, it doesn't taste great. You're gonna just slug it down and um chase it with something if you need to or whatever. But I
It's not your
think
grandma's apple juice.
no, and I think for adults or athletes, it's fine. It is a little bit of a challenge for kids, but I'll tell you this, I have a really picky daughter. She is so stubborn about what she'll eat. First time she took it, she, you know, made a million faces and was gagging and whatever. And I'm like, Em, come on, you need to try this. She finally got one down and she had one of her best games this season. And I went,
Huh.
okay, well, do you think it was that? She's like, I don't know. Let's try it at the next game. So she did it again. Now she's asking me for them. So even though it doesn't taste great, and I actually took a little bit of element powder and
Yeah.
mixed it in, and
Oh, that's a good one.
it took, you know, it
Take some of the
changed
edge
it.
off.
Yeah, yeah, it just took some of the edge off for her. And so now she's asking for them every game.
I love
And
it. Yeah, one thing I'll do just sidebar on that is like, yeah, well, I'm big into like different like brews or K water like combinations, and it's kind of a little meme in the community, like people mixing it with like I like the raspberry element tea. I don't know what flavor did you use?
raspberry, that
Oh,
was the
cool.
one.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
yeah. The raspberry one's really good, and then I'll like squeeze a like fresh lemon in there. Seems to add just like a nice touch to it, and yeah, people like to mix it with it's really interesting as like a kind of the same way that you would look at like a mocktail, like adding a couple of ingredients here there. Um, you can actually make it taste really nice.
Yeah. Well, and actually personally, I love the fact that there isn't any color in it. There isn't a bunch of sweetener. It's just natural stuff. And I'd rather have it not taste amazing, but be very clean than the other way around, right?
It's something interesting from like an entrepreneurial point of view, where I agree with what you're saying too, and we're always going to keep the original one. At the same time, I want to like keep rolling and get. My mission is to make ketones universally accessible. I'm very focused on this. I'm not launching a ashwagandha gummy bear next week or something. Like I think ketones is like a very deep vein that has a lot to it. And part of the mission on that is like putting it into different formats and factors. And yeah, if this one has artificial flavors in it, like, but we still have the original one where people can get that. Like, I think for a lot of people, as we go more and more mainstream, the tolerance for crazy tasting, but wanting something healthier, but like maybe healthier than what they were having, but like maybe not the totally pure one. We're just playing around with different
Yeah.
product expansion on how to make it, how to like meet people where they're at, providing them super fuel, and um, trying to figure out the right different types of formulas to expand out.
And have you guys played with other elements like having it in a powdered form or in a gummy form or something like that? Is that possible?
Yeah, it's definitely something to think about from product innovation standpoint for sure. There's a few different things that start being interesting about it, where in the gummy form, so in the shot that we have right now, you end up getting 10 grams of ketones, and it would end up being like quite a number of gummies. Like
You'd
it
have
would
to eat a whole
be,
bag.
yeah, basically like
Yeah.
you're not packing this into like a gummy
Yeah.
bear. It'd be like 15 gummy bears, which maybe that can work. Maybe it's just like a pouch of gummies. So there's definitely, or like we talk about, if you make pills out of it, it's like, okay, you're gonna have like a dozen horse pills in order to get
Yeah.
that in there. But no, definitely there. It's something I think a lot about with entrepreneurship and just focus. And we all love, I don't know, I love this story. Southwest Airlines only flew 737s for like 40 years, and everything was just like super duper simple. And then they were the most profitable airline. Like they're just profitable for 40 years. All these bigger airlines that did more crazy stuff had to get bailed out by the government and went bankrupt. And Southwest Airlines is kind of this interesting case study in business. of like just simplicity where all the pilots could fly all the planes, all of the like drink carts rolled down perfectly and all the aisles on all the planes. Like there's something to be like really simple, like figuring out one product, one SKU, and then like writing it up as long as possible, um and then iterating out from there, then like expanding out. But I'm like, this is getting kind of into like the my approach to company building and all that, where like I see two things at the same time. I see that there's a lot of opportunity to like broaden out and make different products and offerings and satisfy the market in different ways. And at the same time, I like the simplicity of the supply chain and the messaging and the website. It's just everything is simpler. Like you're just holding all your cash that goes into inventory is in one thing. It's not split into multiple things. Um, so for any entrepreneurs listening, and there's something inside of there, it's just like keeping things really simple. You're not going to satisfy 100% of the people, but maybe if you're satisfying 70%, and then you're getting a lot of gains on your pricing, your purchasing power, because it's all going in one direction. You're getting a lot of benefits on your simplicity, on your supply chain, on all those things you're talking about. I think it's a good way to get like the rocket off the ground and into orbit. And then once you're in orbit, it's like, oh, cool. Yeah, let's like, it is possible to powderize this. Oh, it is possible to make it taste like peach, like fresh peach off the tree. Like you can do all these things. But it's helpful at the start to like get a company up and running to keep things focused.
Yeah, it's like the In-N-Out burger model. I mean, they're really good at just making burgers. The menu isn't elaborate. They don't have chicken sandwiches and chili, but
no nuggets.
Their burgers are good. They do a good job with that.
Yeah, you got to respect it.
You mentioned something to me that I thought was interesting. So if you have plenty of carbohydrates on board and you've got caffeine, you got all these different energy sources, you're telling me that the body will actually choose ketones first and burn those first. It's like the body's preferred fuel and easiest to use.
Yeah, that your body in truth is doing metabolism on many different substrates at the same time. So like we think about what metabolism is. It's maybe a lot of us remember a little bit of high school biology. Your mitochondria is the power plant of your cell, and you're always creating energy, or maybe a better way to say is like you're converting what you ate into usable cellular energy. And usable cellular energy is ATP. That's what's kind of flowing around inside of your cells to let you do things, and that's happening in your muscles, it's happening in your heart, it's happening in your brain. Like all your cells are doing metabolism all the time, and you're drawing on different substrates. So you can use carbohydrates, like all the carbohydrates turn into blood sugar, and then you're using blood sugar for metabolism. You can use fat directly for metabolism. You can break down protein. You actually break it down into glucose in order to metabolize, but you can break down protein in order to use that for metabolism. You can turn, and then your brain, interestingly, doesn't use fat. It cannot directly use fat for metabolism. So that's like the primary evolutionary reason for why we developed ketones, is that your brain can use sugar. The rest of your body can use sugar and fat and all these other things, but your brain cannot use fat. And if fat is our long-term kind of energy storage system, we need a way to be able to use that, but in our brain. So our body turns fat into ketones for our brain. And what's interesting about ketones is there's no like reverse switch. Like if you have sugar in your blood, your body can pack that as sugar. It can actually turn that sugar back like into fat. So if you eat too much sweets all the time, it is true, you will get fat. You will gain body fat. But ketones, once your body makes ketones, or once you have ketones swimming around, they have to get burned, and they pop to the top of the stack of what gets used. And so that's really interesting, because it basically like jumps to the front of the stack. Your brain starts using it. You feel that switched on feeling to it, and then it has this effect of protecting your glycogen store, your carbohydrate stores for like later on. So for a lot of people, when you're in a race and you're really dialed in for an extended period of time, the ability to use ketones now and have like protect some of your other fuel to use later on in a half hour, hour, 2 hours, like that ends up being really beneficial as well. So
Mhm.
interesting characteristic of the of ketones that, yeah, you said it. It's the it ends up going to the top of the stack and kind of protects your ability to use other fuels for later on.
Yeah, that's wild. And these are such a small little bottle. You can stash them in a pocket, and whether you're on a mountain bike or road ride or on a dual sport ride, off-road ride, just easy to carry with you and consume. So the effects are amazing. I've been, like I said, I'm very skeptical of things. I try to make sure I'm not just being sold marketing, and I really believe in what I'm seeing out of this stuff. And so excited to just be partnered with you guys. Like I said, I definitely try to align with premium brands, brands that are at the front of the market, and I feel like you guys are doing that. Is there um, where do you see you guys taking this? And maybe that's an evolving process, but 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years down the road, I mean, how can this evolve? Where would you like to see it go?
Yeah, that's a great question. Top is continuing to do research at that cutting edge. So we've been doing research with Special Operations Command, have a lot of tie in there, and are doubling down. There's a lot of interesting stuff there. So we just started research with the Navy Health Research Center. They're really interested in brain health because of how your brain interacts with ketones, and not just in healthy people, feeling more switched on, but also people who have had TBI, which is traumatic brain injury, concussions, that there's a lot of potential for ketones to be able to recover brain activity. That we've seen it basically like if you have a concussion and you immediately start fasting or doing ketogenic diet, or if you're already in ketosis for other reasons, that your brain is able to recover better. So it's super interesting with an exogenous ketone, like a ketone drink, to be able to directly give your brain ketones after an injury, or if you have like chronic symptoms from TBI. So that's one of, I would say, a dozen different studies that we have going on. That's with the Navy Health Research Center. We're doing a number of studies on recovery, on EPO production, which is your body's ability to make more red blood cells and have those blood cells carry oxygen better. We're doing a dozen different studies with Navy, with Johns Hopkins, with a bunch of other groups to continue expanding. Like there's already a nice, robust body of science around ketones, and continue to drive the science there. That's the thing I'm most excited about. Is like, we travel in outer space and there's, maybe there's less oxygen, or you're exposed to more radiation outside of the Earth's atmosphere. Ketones have some interesting promise. Basically, like I'm a big nerd at heart, big, just like scientist, biohacker. And what's always interesting to me is the science and helping top performers achieve really interesting things using a novel new form of fuel. That's always like tip of the spear for me. And then around that, it's like, I mean, it's like all of the maybe stuff you'd expect. Like we'll get into Costco eventually. We'll get into Walmart. We'll get here, there, like do an ad on the Super Bowl, like everything in due time. I can say this summer, we're doing a lot around the Olympics. We have 4 different Olympians that are big fans of the product, partners, like the gold medalist swimmer Michael Andrews is like really integrating Ketone IQ into his training and seeing crazy results out of it. We have a number of other folks in the Olympic Games this summer, so that'll be a fun one. We have we do a lot of work with Team Visma Lisa Bike. So they won the Tour de France the last 2 years, and they're absolute animals. Tour de France is crazy, as I'm sure a lot of people know. It's a 23-day race, or 21. It's 23 days long. You race for 21 of those, and you're riding like 100 miles a day up the Alps at altitude against like 200 of the other fastest riders in the world. And like if you make the wrong like twitch on your bike, like I mean, you're in a bad spot. Like those guys are moving fast. They have very little armor. So we're going to continue to work with high performing people, and then continue just getting out there in like just normal ways, like handing it out to everyday people at the cafe at the LA Marathon finish line last weekend. I was there in a giant bottle suit, just handing it out to people. So hitting the top end, that's what's always really interesting, pushing science forward, working with the most elite, and then bringing it out to just everyday people too. Because the last thing I want to do is have this be like a niche for, super athlete freak types.
Well, and this is for us, for the motorcycling industry, that's the cool thing about it. You don't have to be elite level racer to experience the benefits. The one problem with riding motorcycles is that if you have a momentary lapse in concentration or fatigue gets the best of you, the consequences are significant.
Oh yeah.
You crash on a motorcycle at speed, it's you know, you're at least going to be banged up and bruised, if not headed to an ER. So being able to keep that mental focus, whether you're just a guy who rides on the weekends for fun or you are a professional athlete, this product is just as important for either one of you. Why wouldn't you? We're always pushing coaching and technique, which is obviously fantastic. But if there's something like this that you can just consume that will help keep your brain sharp, man, what a simple answer.
I love it. I'm happy. I'm just stoked to be able to support. Like if we can make, one less accident happen, or one just help someone be that much sharper to hit the turn correctly. Like that's to me a W. Like
Yeah,
that's super fun. And there's a lot, I think a lot of us, have have that entrepreneurship drive, or a lot of talents that like you could go and build a lot of different things, right? Like there's a lot of different podcasts you could run, a lot of different brands you could build, all that stuff. But to me, I think what motivates the team around me is like they're actually just making a difference. We're not just making like a new flavor of soda pop or popcorn or whatever. It's like actually helping change outcomes and helping people perform better. And sometimes these matters of life and death. I think that's like, yeah, it's cool when like you sell a pallet of it to Equinox Gym or Sprouts grocery store. We just launched a Wegmans. Like, yeah, you ring the bell, like, yeah, like cool, sales team has a celebration. But I think what gets people really out of bed is what you're talking about, just helping people actually just perform better, ride safer, crush it. A lot of, I mean, it's true. It's like how many people are actually like pro riders versus probably like 99% of people. Like, yeah, you got like a job, wife, kids, like all the more reason to like get the extra edge if you're not able to like train full time and have your technique, perfectly dialed in because you're doing it 8 hours a day for the last decade. Like if you're more casual, I'd say like all the more reason to like get the best possible protective
yeah,
gear. Like
yeah.
do all of the things that like recover really well, like do all the things that maybe uh give you that extra advantage. Because yeah, if you're not able to do 40 hours a week at it, and you still want to be good, you still want to be, more importantly, safe. um I think those are good things to invest in.
Yeah, and we could break it down even into or look at it from more of a 30,000 foot view. Even if you're just a dad and you get home from work and you're tired and you want to be present and active with your family, but your brain's all foggy and tired, that's an easy fix right here. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Be a better
yeah.
dad. Stop being terrible parents out there, get some ketone IQ.
I know it's
Um,
cool. I think what's cool about it is that it doesn't interfere with your sleep, so you can feel comfortable having it at like 5 p.m. and it's not going to wreck your sleep. It's just interesting difference. I think that's probably one of the favorite things I personally like about it. Yeah.
Yeah, and the stuff about TBI and how it interacts with your brain, obviously in motocross racing and off-road racing, particularly Baja and things like that, a lot of we have a lot of concussions. It's one of our unfortunate truths. And so I'm going to stay in touch with you guys and your team on that as that research develops because man, another incredible tool for folks that are going out and unfortunately having crashes and hitting their head. That maybe this could help it to heal quicker or better.
Yeah, what I would say is if you get a knock in the head, like try to get your ketones up ASAP. Just basically what happens is that your brain starts being starved of energy. There's damage that interferes with your brain's ability to do metabolism, and especially glucose metabolism. Um, and ketones are just another metabolite. They go through another pathway, the smaller molecule. It doesn't require insulin, and it provides us another kind of like fuel inlet into your neurons, so that there's some damage done at the moment of impact, but then there's damage done over the next 72 hours as you have neurons that are starved and not metabolizing correctly. And yeah, let's stay in touch on it, because that's exactly what the science around it is. Why the science around it is super interesting, because it's showing a lot of promise and continuing to uncover new stuff like every month.
Well, that's awesome, man. I will absolutely on all those studies. I just really want to thank you for taking some time, Michael. I know you're busy. I'm so stoked on what you built here. It's just it's one of those products I feel like that's a game changer. I don't think that we've seen even the top of it yet. So keep it up. I'm stoked to be partnered with you guys, and we'll do our best to promote it and show people the effects of it. And yeah, in the meantime, we'll stay in touch on the products and all of the research as it continues to evolve.
Awesome, David. This is a lot of fun. Thanks for having me
Yep.
on.
Thanks a bunch. We'll be in touch.